And we are back. Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora, he's the fighter. I'm the writer. Lot to get into on this show this week, Sergio. We have a brand new fight for Jake Paul, and it's not the one that everyone has been talking about. We've got some news with Danny Dubois dumping virtually every member of his team after the loss to Oleksandr Usyk. And we're also going to talk to Michael Hunter, the heavyweight contender who is being penciled in right now to face Jarrell Miller during the Terrence Crawford-Canelo Alvarez fight week. A lot going on with Michael Hunter these days. We'll talk to him about that fight. And I'm going to ask him, if he beats Jarrell Miller, would he fight Moses Itauma? Stick around for that interview a little bit later in the show. But Sergio, I got to start with this. Shout out to Boxing Scene for making note of this, but it is the 30-year anniversary of the Mike Tyson-Peter McNeely fight. That was back 30 years ago, 1995. And that was one of the very first fights that I ever watched. Maybe the first fight I really remember watching. I remember being at my friend's house, ordering it on pay-per-view. Peter McNeely, of course, a local guy in the Boston area. Fun fight for like 60 seconds, however long it lasted. And then Mike Tyson winds up getting the stoppage win. What do you remember about Tyson McNeely?
I remember two things about that fight. Peter McNeely's pre-fight interview in the locker room. He gave a shout out to a bunch of people, and he gave this awkward shout out to this man. I forget what his name was, but if our producer can get it right now, put it in.
This is for my grandfathers, my grandmothers, my father, my mother, Curly, my three brothers, last but not least, Snubby.
That was awkward, man. That and the commercial leading up to the fight where he got knocked out by a pizza he was eating. Those two things I remember by Peter McNeely getting knocked out by Mike Tyson.
Peter McNeely went in there with one game plan. Let's just go straight ahead, see if you can catch Mike Tyson rusty, catch him early. And then once that failed, his corner could not have waved the white flag quicker, could not have thrown in the towel quicker. They were not looking to get their guy any more beat up than he already was. So shout out Peter McNeely. 30 years ago, incredible. 30 years since Mike Tyson's first fight since getting out of prison. All right, we've got a lot to get into on the show today, but let's start as we always do with our winners and losers of the week. Give me your winner of the week.
My winner of the week happened to lose this week, but he won this fight. He won the crowd. It's Sam Goodman. He put on a championship performance against Nick Ball in a fight where he probably could have won. He could have made a fight for winning. I mean, a case for winning. I give him a lot of credit. He boxed, he fought, he handled Nick Ball. I think Sam Goodman, even in defeat, man, he won some fans, and I think he should keep his head up because he's going to get another opportunity. Sam Goodman is my winner of the week.
All right, I don't really understand that one. Like, Sam Goodman was competitive in that fight. It wasn't an especially entertaining fight. And you saying he probably could have won, it's not exactly a ringing endorsement for Sam Goodman. Like, he was fine. He didn't get steamrolled. He didn't get knocked out. But he kind of was what I thought he was. A guy that, worked his way up to being the mandatory challenger for Inoue at 122. Through some, relatively low-level wins, gets the opportunity against Nick Ball, and all right, he didn't get blown out, but he still got beat pretty good. That's to me a questionable.
I don't think
my
so.
winner.
I disagree with that, but that goes to show why we have a show and we disagree in a lot, because Sam Goodman looked good. He boxed well and he fought the perfect fight. He fought the fight he needed to fight to win this fight, and he didn't.
Yeah, but he lost to a guy that's not. But who's not considered elite. And you can make an argument that Nick Ball, is among the weaker of the champions.
Doesn't matter. He's an undefeated champion, and this was a chance of a lifetime for Sam Goodman. And one judge saw it right, the other two didn't see it right. But
that judge that saw it right, the judge that saw it right still had him losing. Okay,
that's fine. That's why I said it.
I don't want to seem like I'm knocking Sam Goodman. I just think it's an odd choice for winner of the week since he lost his fight at the championship level. My winner of the week, Sergio, was unquestionably a winner, and that is young Moses Itauma, 20 years old, and picked up the biggest win of his career last week in a knockout win over Dillian White. Gets White out of there in the first round. That was, I think, the 8th or 9th time that an opponent of a consecutive time that an opponent of Moses Itauma has not been able to get out of the first or second round. This was the most experienced opponent of his career in Dillian Whyte, a guy that has only lost at the championship level. And Moses Itauma, he made it look easy. You saw in the brief time this fight lasted just the full breadth of skills and talent of Moses Itauma. The punch variation, the power, the speed, the footwork. I mean, he showed a little bit of everything. Clearly, Dillian Whyte has seen better days, but this was exactly the kind of proverbial scalp that someone like Moses Itauma needs on his resume to keep his career going. So no doubt in my mind, Moses Itauma took a big step forward with that win over Dillian Whyte, and he was my winner of the week.
Yeah, and he shined. He looked great, and he knocked out a guy in the first round, a guy that's only been stopped by 3 champions in midway into fights. And to do that this young, you're turning a lot of heads, and you put the heavyweight division on notice. And it's the fact that he went after it, and he did it responsibly, stepping back, not exchanging with Dillian Whyte, because that's what Dillian Whyte likes to do, is exchanging and punching in between the shots. You can see that Moses Itauma is he's going to be something special, because he punches really hard. He steps back and counters. He doesn't smother himself. He goes to the body, and that mean right hook, man, from that left-handed stance. This guy's going to be a problem.
Well, let me ask you this. There's been a lot of talk about Itauma jumping straight into a fight with Oleksandr Usyk, the undisputed heavyweight champion. The Saudis seem to be interested in paying for it. Turki Al-Sheikh seems to be interested in promoting it. If you were part of Team Itauma and there was a pile of money on the table for you to jump up right now, 20 years old, to fight Oleksandr Usyk, would you take that opportunity?
100% with no questions asked, because that type of money you only see once in a lifetime, once in a career. And if you come up short, you're coming up short against one of the greatest fighters of our generation in Usyk. So there's no shame in that. It'll be like, when Saul Canelo Alvarez went up to fight Floyd Mayweather Jr., came up short. And it's all right. Everyone expected him to come up short. He was an underdog, but he still ended up being Canelo Alvarez and being the #1 fighter in the world and making a boatload of money afterwards. So I think Moses Itauma, similar things could happen if he steps up and fights a giant like Usyk the Great.
Yeah, I think Itauma, his team is not going to push for that fight because they're smart. Like Ben Davison is a smart trainer. They know that there is no chance they're going to blow through Usyk in the first 4 rounds. So what happens to Itauma when he gets the second half of a fight into the final third of a fight, having to go the distance with a fighter like Usyk that has proven he can win at the championship level, the highest level, in a distance fight? Like, there's still another level, maybe 2 levels for Moses Itauma to get to. But if he gets offered the fight, if the Saudis put a pile of money on the table, enough money to make it worth Oleksandr Usyk's while, yeah, I agree with you. I think you jump at that opportunity. And it does have some comparisons to the Canelo-Floyd situation back in 2013. Canelo, young fighter, 154-pounder, came down a couple of pounds, fought Floyd Mayweather, and got an education. He's talked about this. The Reynosos have talked about this. What they learned in that fight against Mayweather was invaluable. It's the kind of thing you can't learn in the gym, and you can't learn fighting anybody else. So I don't think that Itauma is going to push for it, but if it's presented, why not? Take the opportunity and run with it. Your loser of the week, Sergio, who would that be?
This is going to come off as harsh, but it's going to be Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I mean, first he loses to boxing's version of Ice Baby in what was that rapper's name? Vanilla Ice. And then he goes and gets deported by ICE and goes back to Mexico. I mean, it's just a terrible look for Chavez Jr. I just think that's my loser of the week, the month, the last year, the last couple of years. Chavez Jr. is my loser of the century.
Yeah, that's a tough stretch for Chavez Jr. to lose to Jake Paul and then immediately after get arrested and just this week get deported. And apparently he's jailed in Mexico right now. There still is there still is the accusations of him being part of the Sinaloa cartel. So he's got a lot to figure out over the next few months. I think we've probably seen the last of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. In a boxing ring. My loser of the week is actually losers of the week. And it's all the top fighters in the middleweight division. And they're losers, Sergio, because none of them are fighting each other. Look around the middleweight division. You've got 3 title holders. You've got Janibek, who is the unified champion. You've got Carlos Adames, who has the WBC title. And you've got Erislandy Lara, who has the WBA belt. None of these fighters are especially marketable. None of these fighters are what you would call big money fighters. They wouldn't command huge paydays to get back in the ring. Yet none of them seem to be close to a deal to fight each other. And look, we've been talking about the middleweight division being down really ever since Gennady Golovkin exited about 3 years ago. But the fact that we can't get more than one unified champion with 2 belts is embarrassing for the division. Like, if you're Carlos Adames, shouldn't you be pushing for a fight against Janibek? If you're Adames, shouldn't you be talking to your promotional team about making a fight against Erislandy Lara? We haven't seen Adames since that fight against Hamza Shiraz. We haven't seen Erislandy Lara right now it's right about a year when he last beat Danny Garcia on the Canelo undercard. And Janibek has been out there calling people out on social media, but he's not been all that active either. I mean, these guys, they've got to get it together. Promoters, Top Rank, PBC, there needs to be unification fights made in the 160-pound division because it has never been more irrelevant than it is right now. And the only way to try to increase the relevancy of one of these guys is to put them in with each other and see what happens. So I declare the middleweight division, your former weight class, Sergio, as my losers of the week.
Yeah, it's a way station right now. Usually, I should say.
Glamour division, it used to be.
Yeah, usually, welterweight and middleweight is where you had the speed of a lightweight and the power of a heavyweight, they would say. You had a mix of power and speed. It was an exciting division, between 147 and 160. That's not the case anymore. I mean, you have talent. You have excellent talent. I mean, I love watching Aleem Kanuli. Janibek can fight, man. He's scary. Carlos Adames just needed an opportunity to shine. He came up short against Hamza in a draw. But these guys should face each other because whenever you don't have that mass following, that star potential, you don't have that name, you don't have that recognition, you don't put butts in seats, you have to make a name for yourself. And the only way to do that is by unifying, by fighting other champions, by going to the baddest man in your category, around your division, and making a statement with him. That's how you get all eyes on you, man. And if you don't do that, if you're just waiting for the payday, you won't even fight a 42-year-old middleweight champion in Erislandy Lara. Come on, man. Something's wrong with not only that certain boxing division, but with boxing, period. Everyone's waiting for that Saudi money. Everyone's waiting for that opportunity. And if you're not fighting each other and making a name for yourself, you're not going to even get a wink from the Saudi or that Saudi money if you're not going to do nothing with that name and that belt that you hold.
Yeah, you got to get one champion at middleweight in order for that fighter to become a bigger star, be it at 168 or fighting someone coming up from 154. It's not a good look right now for middleweight. So hopefully these guys can find a way to get it together. All right. Let's begin with a topic that we just effectively created in the last 15 minutes before we started recording this episode. We were going to start the show, Sergio, talking about the possibility of a Manny Pacquiao-Tank Davis fight. This is something that's been in the water supply a little bit. Pacquiao had talked about fighting Tank, but he wanted to do it at 145 or 147. Tank has not really been heard from in a boxing ring, at least in terms of in boxing conversations, since the deal to fight Lamont Roach in a rematch fell apart. Now we know why Tank Davis has gone radio silent over the last few weeks. He is now set to fight Jake Paul in what would be an exhibition match in November in Atlanta. The news of this fight, Sergio, first leaked because the Netflix Turkey account posted a fight poster of Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. Mike Coppinger over at Ring Magazine subsequently confirmed that this fight was happening on November 15th. You have been very outspoken about Jake's fights in the past. I can only imagine what you think about Jake against Tank. Your thoughts, please, Sergio Mora.
Just when I start giving Jake Paul some credit, he takes it right back. I mean, what are you doing fighting a former middleweight champion, a guy that's kind of your size? He belongs in the ring with you. You make a statement. You actually get the respect of boxing. And then you just go backwards from that to fight a guy that's going to be 8 inches smaller than you, shorter than you, 9 inches less in reach, and a lot younger in weight and size. This is gonna be like the Jolly Green Giant versus a Keebler Elf once they get in the ring. It's gonna be a travesty of boxing of grand proportion, man. It's gonna be embarrassing once they get in the ring. I don't care how explosive Tank is, how great of a fighter he is, how he can fight small. Whenever you're dealing with that kind of disparity in numbers and height and weight and reach and all that, and youth, and the fact that Jake Paul does have, some kind of ability. I mean, it's not like he's a total novice now. It's a terrible look. I hate this fight when Tank should be fighting the champions around his division, the big dogs in his division, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Andy Cruz, or a rematch with Lamont Roach, which he deserves. No. What is he doing? He's fighting a Disney star. What a damn shame, man. What a damn shame and a slap in the face for every boxing fan. And normally I would applaud Jake Paul and say, wow, all right, great. I applauded him for the event that he put on against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. because that was a legitimate fight. This is going backwards. This is regressing from the praise that I gave him. You are not fighting a champion, a top dog, a pound for pound guy in Tank Davis. You're fighting a much smaller, very much. I mean, this is going to be it's going to be embarrassing how big and how small Tank and Jake Paul are going to look next to each other. And that's when you're going to realize, what the hell am I watching? Why am I watching it? And it's going to be another version of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson in a different sense.
Yeah. First of all, this is not a surprise. This was a fight or an exhibition that was a done deal in the hours leading up to Tank's fight with Lamont Roach. Like, I've talked to Jake about this. They had the announcement ready. They had a promotional video ready. Jake was, I believe, at that fight, ready to, be part of the announcement that they were going to fight an exhibition. So this has been in the works for some time. And even over the last few weeks, as the talks seem to be heating up between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, people behind the scenes were telling me, no, it's still more likely to be Jake against Tank. They're far down the road on those discussions. And then that was kind of backed up by, on the other side, seeing how deep into things AJ was with this potential fight against Tony Yoka over in Ghana. You had Frank Smith going over to Ghana. You had members of AJ's team going over to Ghana. So, what people were saying publicly was never really reinforced by what seemed to be happening behind the scenes. All that being said, I don't really know what this looks like. Like, Jake Paul is a big dude. He's 6 foot, 6'1".
Tank Davis is 5'5".
Yes, and Tank Davis, Tank Davis, I know. Hold on, Tank Davis is not a big lightweight. I mean, he's fought at 140 pounds before. Maybe he can get up and fight, competitively at 147. But other than that, he's just big. Like, other than that, whatever weight you're talking about, it's not going to be a weight that Tank is going to be at his best at a fighter. And even if he was, look, size matters. Like, in my mind, I'm kind of envisioning that scene from Seinfeld where, Kramer is fighting the kids in the karate dojo, where Kramer isn't on their level, but he's like, a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier. And that's kind of what Jake Paul is going to be in this particular fight. But look, I know that, you are down on Jake for this one. I will say this about Jake. Like, Jake has always been transparent that he's as interested in big events as he is the kind of big fights that people are looking for. Yes, he is trying to become a boxing champion. The win over Chavez was a step in that direction. Talks with Anthony Joshua, while crazy, were a big step in that direction. But he's been pretty transparent that he's always looking for these types of events. Even if they're kind of circus-like events, the way Mike Tyson was, he's looking to do these type of events because there's a big, broad audience for it. There's a lot of money that's ultimately into it. That's reinforced by the fact that Netflix is backing this up, and Netflix is supporting this show. It's probably going to sell out. It's going to sell out in Atlanta, where we've already seen Tank fight and be a big draw already. So I'm not really looking at this from the Jake perspective. I think it's a much worse look for Tank Davis, because when I assess this fight, to me, it's like, this is Tank cashing out. Like this is Tank really wanting no part of a rematch with Lamont Roach, which he should have lost. He should have either lost on the scorecards or he should have been disqualified for, stepping outside the ring to have his trainer wipe his face off after that moment later in the second half of the fight. This to me is Tank saying, I'm pretty much done with boxing. Like, I'm going to do this event. I'm going to weigh 154, 160 pounds. I'm going to have a sparring match with Jake Paul, and then I'm done. Look, Tank, before the first Lamont Roach fight, was basically saying exactly this, that he was not going to be long for the sport, that he was only going to fight for the rest of the year, and then probably walk away from it. This, to me, is Tank cashing out. Him saying, I can get a pile of money for an exhibition match, a sparring session against Jake Paul. I agree with you, Sergio. It's probably going to look really goofy in the ring when you have a guy that big going up against a guy that small. It just, no matter the skill level that differentiates them, it just doesn't work, at least not to me. So this is just, in my opinion, Tank saying, I don't want the challenge that is Shakur Stevenson. I don't want the challenge, that is a rematch with Lamont Roach. I definitely don't want to fight someone like Andy Cruz. I'm just looking to make one more big check, and then I'm going to walk away. That's how I interpret this event leaking out.
Yeah, well said. But you're a little bit too politically correct. And let me give you the flip side of that. It's a slap in the face to Tank fans. All the people that supported Tank all along, since the last time he fought a champion was in 2017. Jose Pedraza was the champion. Then he fights Lamont Roach 7 years later and he gets a draw. He didn't beat Lamont Roach, and Roach should have won that fight. His biggest fight was against a non-champion in Ryan Garcia. That was the biggest win of his career. Tank Davis will forever be known for beating Ryan Garcia. And guess what? Now he's going to be forever be known for fighting a Disney star. And if he loses against a Disney star, Tank's career is irrelevant. You can
first of all, he's not this is going to be an exhibition. I don't know any of the rules
it doesn't
for
matter.
An exhibition. I'd be shocked if this was scored.
Don't care because people are forever going to remember Jake Paul.
But how is he going to lose? I don't know how. I don't think there's going to be a winner and a loser in this fight. Maybe they'll have judges ringside, but it won't count towards either's official record because it's impossible to do that. Like Tank can't get that heavy and Jake can't get that small. So it's just going to be an exhibition.
I remember when we were in Saudi and we were doing a pod on my thoughts of Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I told you before that fight, it was going to be an embarrassment. It was going to be a one-sided fight between a
I agree with you.
young fighter and a senior citizen. I'm going to tell you exactly how this fight's going to look, how it's going to present himself. It's going to do massive numbers, just like the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul debacle. This one's going to be a similar debacle, similar circus. That's the word that you use. That's exactly what it's going to look like. The world's tallest man, when you go into the circus, you see that big, tall figure, and then you get the little person, the smaller person. They both come out and they're dancing, and then all the rings, the balloons, all that. That's how it's going to look. It's going to be like a circus act, man. And Jake Paul, for whatever he is, he's a master promoter. I've given him credit all the time. And just like a circus promoter in B.T. Barnum, he always said, no one ever went broke overestimating the ignorance of the American public. And here you go. Netflix is picking it up. The American public's going to eat it up. International fans are going to eat it up. And guess what? P.T. Barnum will be proud for a promoter and a self-promoter like Jake Paul. So you got to give it to him, man. He's making a killing in money, but he's not fighting, and he's not heading in the right direction to become a quote-unquote champion like he wants to become. He still wants to be an attraction and a circus act and not take it serious like boxing fans.
But he's not denied that, Sergio. He's been on the record transparent about being willing to do that. He hasn't
denied it, but he also goes on camera and he goes on every boxing outlet saying that he wants to be a cruiserweight champion and that he takes it serious, that he hires the best to train them, the best. You have those resources. You take the sport serious. You definitely train hard, and he's gotten better. I gave him credit when he fought Chavez Jr. I gave him a standing ovation. I applauded him as a promoter, as a fighter, and everything he's doing this fast. But now I'm retracting all that because he's going backwards, fighting a little lightweight fighter in Tank Davis when you're a damn 6'1", heavyweight pretty much. That's what Jake Paul is. He goes well over 225 pounds. What is he doing fighting this guy, man? It's a terrible look for Tank Davis more than it is Jake Paul. Jake Paul's just hustling the crowd. He's making money. Tank Davis, shame on him.
Yeah, I guess, look, you can't spend legacy. I might be butchering that phrase, but like
You can't feed your kids with legacy. I know what you're
yeah, I
trying to
mean,
say.
yeah, so Tank is probably going to wind up with a career best payday, or close to it anyway, for fighting Jake Paul. And that's the name of the game. It's prize fighting, ultimately. And if you can get a pile of money for an exhibition against Jake Paul, which is not going to count on your record, as opposed to a little bit less money, maybe a lot less money, to fight a tough rematch with Lamont Roach, you're going to do it if you're Tank Davis. But
You're gonna do it, Mannix, but you're gonna do it at the end of your career when you're already.
I
Like,
agree. This is
like,
what I'm getting
for
there.
instance,
I'm
like
getting
when
there.
Floyd
I'm
Mayweather
getting.
Jr. fought Jake's brother Logan.
Yes, I
Mayweather,
agree.
at the end of his career, after he already accomplished greatness, he's already a Hall of Famer. He already did everything he needed to do in boxing. Now you can go and beat up these Disney stars. Tank Davis is 30 years old. He's still in his prime. He hasn't faced the absolute best in his weight division and refuses to look in the way of all these killers like Shakur and the rematch with Lamont and Keyshawn and Cruz and all these other guys. It's a loaded division. What are you doing? You're tucking tail and you're going for a circus act. And Jake Paul, yeah, to chase the money. Okay, who doesn't want to chase money? But that legacy you're leaving behind, and this guy can't even be mentioned with Hall of Fame credentials or even mentioned as a championship fighter. I'll say it again. Tank Davis cannot be mentioned as a championship fighter when your last fight was 7 years ago on the championship level that you won. That is not a champion in my opinion. That's a guy that chased the money and left the legacy behind.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Floyd, for all the criticism he faced at different points about Pacquiao and not fighting certain guys at their best, he does have an excellent resume, a Hall of Fame resume. And he didn't get into the gimmicky stuff, the Conor McGregors, the Logan Pauls, until he was in the twilight of his career or his career was over. Tank Davis, chronologically, is in the prime of his career, and he should be fighting the very best at 135 or 140. He's not doing that, and I think this is a choice to never do that. Like Sergio, I can't see Tank Davis kind of eating his way up to whatever weight this event will be at a catch weight for, and then like 6 months later working his way back down to 135 pounds. It just doesn't happen. I mean, I'm not comparing the two things, but when Roy Jones went up in weight to fight John Ruiz, he had a lot of problems getting back down to that weight that he was at before at 175 pounds. That was the beginning of the end for Roy Jones when we went back down in weight to 175 pounds. So I just think this kind of puts a button on the career of Tank Davis as a boxer. And I think we'll have a lot of time to kind of, expound on Tank's career and what it all means. But I think this effectively ends his career as a prize fighter if he goes through with this fight against Jake Paul. All right, let's move on. Another topic that I know you're burning on is Daniel Dubois' decision to shake up his entire team. Daniel Dubois, in the aftermath of his loss to Oleksandr Usyk, has made some significant changes to his team. He changed managers, now working with Sam Jones, a prominent UK manager, and he has changed trainers. Don Charles is out, according to some reports. Tony Sims, he is in. Don Charles, of course, did a phenomenal job training Daniel Dubois back to the championship level, steered him to wins over Filip Hrgović, over Jarrell Miller, and over Anthony Joshua. One loss against Oleksandr Usyk, and Don Charles is now out. Sergio, I'll give you this, you are pretty consistent on your belief that loyalty matters, sticking with one trainer matters. What are your thoughts on Daniel Dubois leaving Don Charles?
We go from a circus act to a damn Greek tragedy, a travesty, a slap in the face. How the hell do you leave a guy that you've been perfect with in Don Charles? So look, I'm going to say it right here. Daniel Dubois, you're a coward, man. That's some cowardly stuff to leave a guy that you have your three best wins after getting knocked out by Usyk, embarrassed in front of the world, and then you have this monster run, get to a world championship, make all that money, you're back. You did it with that man in your corner in less than 2 years. I think it was like a 16 to 18 month span. That's because of that man in your corner, that voice, that technique, everything that he instilled in you, and then you slap him in the face and everyone that helped you along the way. I hate hearing that, man. I hate hearing that because it's disloyalty and it's ignorance and it's fighters that really can't take an ass whooping. Part of being a fighter is licking your wounds after a loss, and you need good corner. You need a good trainer. You need good people behind you to do that. Daniel Dubois is not the strongest minded guy. I think anyone will tell you that whenever you see him fight, whenever he loses, he second guesses himself, and a lot of people think that he quits. This is just another way of quitting on the people that have had your back, on the people that got you the position that you're in. A person in Don Charles that helped you become a world champion when everyone, including myself, gave up on you. And what do? You leave him after another loss to a guy that you already lost to when he wasn't in your corner, a guy that everyone loses to. No shame losing to Oleksandr Usyk. But then after going on that monster run, knocking out an undefeated Big Baby Miller, knocking out an undefeated Ergovich, knocking out a two-division world champion Anthony Joshua, becoming the IBF champion, and then you fire this man? Look yourself in the mirror, man, and really, really forget question. Everyone's already looking at a guy like Danny Dubois and just thinking the most negative thoughts they could possibly think of. But Danny Dubois really needs to look in the mirror and say, why the hell would I fire a man that's been loyal to me and got me to a world title, forever known as a world champion as Danny Dubois now, because of Don Charles, and you're just going to let this man float in the wind because of whatever ignorant reason you have, thinking that you can do it without him moving forward? Terrible look for Danny Dubois.
Yeah, I was stunned that he made this decision. Don Charles is a good tactician, and we saw that in the 3 wins that you mentioned. But I think with Dubois, he was even better as a motivator. Like Don Charles, if you watch him in the corners of his fighters, which goes back to Derek Chisora, who he had a long relationship with, and now more recently Dubois, like he is a demonstrative guy. He is a vocal guy. And I'm imagining he's very much that way in training camps as well. And I thought he sort of dug something out of Danny Dubois over the last couple of years that was either buried or missing. That fortitude that he needed to become a heavyweight champion. I mean, look at those specific fights. Like, he had to dig deep against Jarrell Miller to pick up that knockout. He had to dig deep against Filip Hrgović to pick up that knockout. These were not walk in the park types of fights. Like, he had some rough moments in the first half of both of those fights, but he dug deep, he found some resolve, and he wound up knocking out both those guys. And then he has a near flawless performance against Anthony Joshua, who had won, 3 fights in a row going into that fight against Dubois. So everything seemed to be clicking. Now, the performance against Dubois against Usyk was bad. It was worse than the performance the first time around, I thought, because, once again, we saw kind of the bad in Danny Dubois. We saw him go down, kind of look around, referee gets to 10, you finally stand up, you walk your way back to the corner. Like, we just saw too much of the old Danny Dubois. And look, if you're going to give the trainer credit for the good things, you got to, criticize them for the bad things as well. But the idea that would be enough to fire this man who steered you to the 3 biggest wins of your professional career is frankly crazy to me. And it makes me wonder,
We've seen it before. We've seen it with Ryan Garcia when he left Eddie Reynoso after 5 wins, 5 knockouts. And from there, Ryan Garcia goes south. He starts losing. He starts having issues. Why do you leave perfection? Why the hell is Danny Dubois leaving a man that got you to a world championship? This man won a world title. He looked better. He got his confidence back. He beat undefeated fighters. He wasn't beating, guys that you're supposed to beat, coming back from a knockout loss. I don't get it. I don't get the mentality of these fighters. And this goes back to Anthony Joshua after the Andy Ruiz loss. It seems like the bigger, more intimidating, powerful punchers at heavyweight, once they have that one setback, they go looking for somebody to blame. And that's normally the guy in their corner. Lightweight fighters don't do that. You don't see, flyweights and lightweights and even welterweights leaving their trainer their day one after the first tough loss. No, man, you stick to it. But it seems like the bigger the man, the bigger the ego, the bigger their ability to swallow a loss and move on and roll with the punches. Disloyal, and it's disheartening when you see things like that in boxing.
Well, it does make me wonder exactly what is going on behind the scenes with Danny Dubois, because we know that Dubois' father, Stan, is a big influence on his son. And look, as he should be, he's been there for Daniel every step of the way. But in terms of his career at this point, I'm not exactly sure who's making the final decision in all this. Was it Danny Dubois who has an issue with Don Charles and wanted to move on? Or was it someone else in his team that has an issue with Don Charles and wanted him to move on? Either way, it just strikes me as a tough move to move on from a trainer like Don Charles after the run that he's been on. No disrespect to someone like Tony Sims, who's an excellent trainer over in the UK. If that's the direction that Dubois decides to go, he's going to a guy with experience at a high level. But you're leaving a guy that just seemed like the perfect fit for you. He just seemed like an ideal trainer for a fighter that not only needs the X's and O's of boxing, but also needs a push. And Don Charles is very good at giving those pushes. So, look, Dubois young, 27, 28 years old, got a long career ahead of him. We'll see. We'll find out in the next couple of years. This is the right move. But right now, it does not look like
one last thing real quick. Abel Sanchez was left by Gennady Golovkin when he made that big money. Sometimes fighters leave their trainers, their day ones, over money. But this isn't the case. This wasn't the case with Dubois. This was just someone in his ear thinking they could do better with someone else after another tough loss against a great like Usyk. It's a terrible look for world champions, and I don't understand it. I really don't understand it, because boxing is something that you need to be groomed to greatness. And normally it's that guy, that voice in your corner that's sweating with you, that's training with you, that's going through the pain with you, that blood and everything, going through the mud to get out of there. And then when you do get out of there, you just leave them behind. I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's a terrible look.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing from Dubois on this. He put out a statement, confirming the news that he was leaving Don Charles, but I'd like to hear some more. I don't want to hear, talking points, like, it's just time for a change, needed a different voice.
Well, that's what you're here.
But something happened. Obviously, something happened. There was a trigger for all this, and I think it's more than just one loss. I think there's more to the story than what we're getting right now. All right, keeping it in the heavyweight division, Deontay Wilder, still on the comeback trail, has an opponent putting his hand up to face him, and it's none other than Francis Ngannou, the former UFC heavyweight champion, PFL heavyweight champion, who went 10 rounds with Tyson Fury before being obliterated inside 2 rounds by Anthony Joshua. He says that he wants to fight Deontay Wilder in a boxing match. Had this appearance recently with Ariel Helwani. I want you to take a listen.
Okay. You did mention the Deontay Wilder fight, though. That's very interesting. He won in June. Is that something that you are actively pursuing right now?
Yes, I do.
Is there any talks between you and his camp?
We haven't engaged personally, but it's going to be soon.
Soon that you'll talk to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are still setting some things up, but I keep training. I'm training.
Would that be your top choice right now? In if you had a top choice in any sport, like number one fight is Deontay Wilder in a boxing match?
I would say so. Since the Jun fight is off, I cannot be part of it.
All right, Sergio, we have seen Ngannou in a boxing ring twice. Do you want to see him in it for a third time? And do you want to see him in it with Deontay Wilder?
I do not want to see a man that's going to be 40 years old in a couple of months, a guy that has lost 4 out of his last 6, 3 of them by knockout, Chris Mannix. He's been knocked out bad, and now he's going to be facing an MMA fighter. I mean, this is one of the scariest punchers in Deontay Wilder, Bomb Squad, a man that just made a lot with the little that he was given as far as ability and talent, from bronze medal to winning a championship to making a whole lot of money. This man went from being menacing to now being meek, and now fighting an MMA fighter, someone that already got knocked out by Anthony Joshua. I mean, it's not like you haven't seen him get knocked out. You haven't seen him in the boxing ring. Ngannou can't box. Ngannou can't box. It's going to look similar to the Joshua knockout. So, 1, who is paying for this? 2, why the hell is Ngannou coming back to boxing against one of the hardest punchers in boxing in the last 25 years? And 3, why is Wilder even entertaining this? Another terrible look. I don't get it. Maybe it should be on the undercard of Jake Paul and Tank Davis because this is really a circus, man. Boxing is turning into a circus, and I really don't understand. Outside of the money, I really understand who's paying these guys for this. You remember Turkey Al-Sheikh when he said after Joshua knocked out Ngannou, he said, "No more of these fights. No more of these pretend fights. He wants real championship fights." Who's paying for this one? Who's paying for Wilder and Gane, Chris Mannix? Tell me.
It's a reasonable question. I don't know who is willing to put up the cash, the guaranteed cash for that particular fight, especially with we've already seen what Ngannou looks like against a big puncher. Wilder has not been, competitive at a high level for several years now. So who's willing to put up the money is a reasonable question. And look, maybe it is Turki Al-Sheikh, who's got a relationship with Francis Ngannou, did those 2 fights with Ngannou in a boxing ring. Maybe he steps forward and wants to do that fight in boxing. But I disagree with this your take on why would Wilder do this. Obviously, he would do it for the money. If you're Deontay Wilder and there's money in this, you run towards this fight. This is a much easier a fight for you than a showdown with Anthony Joshua or another fight against Tyson Fury. Just throwing hypotheticals there. Or an Usyk fight, which maybe could be possible at some point down the line. This is a fight against a older MMA fighter who has already been knocked out by a guy that fights kind of like you, that throws straight right hands. So if you're Deontay Wilder and this is presented to you as a possibility and the money is there, you jump at it. Similarly, Sergio, I'd probably jump at it too if I'm Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou is sitting out there in the PFL wondering what's next for him. I don't know any of the other PFL heavyweights that are out there. I don't know what the big money fight is for him in the PFL. I do know that a John Jones fight seems to be off the table because UFC is not interested in a co-promotion with PFL, and Ngannou has another fight left on his PFL deal. So if you're not going to get a John Jones fight and you're not going to get anything big in PFL, why not approach Deontay Wilder? You're talking about Deontay Wilder like he's the same guy that was mowing down heavyweights for 5 years during the teens. He's not that guy anymore. He has been knocked out several times over the last few years. His last fight, he won by knockout, but it was against a really low-level opponent. So if I'm Ngannou, this is, it's still a dangerous fight because Wilder still has that power. But if there's a payday in it for me, I'm not walking away from that fight. I know, I get it. He didn't look great against Joshua. In fact, he looked awful. But he did go 10 rounds with Tyson Fury. He did knock down Tyson Fury. So we know he has power in that right hand. And we know that Wilder, not so eager to get hit these days if you watch him fight. So, look, I think the point you bring up about who's paying for it is a reasonable point because I don't know at this point who would bring that money up, put that money on the table. But for both these guys, it kind of makes some sense if they can put it together.
Deontay Wilder shot. And I hate to say that, but he shot. He shook.
So why wouldn't he do this?
You're to get hit. I get it. So I'm just trying to, go off of what you're saying. I try to see things neutrally and evenly. So you make good points there. But I go back to 1, who's paying for it, and 2, who wants to watch it? I certainly don't want to watch it. That's going to be pay-per-view. It's not going to be on free television. It's going to be on pay-per-view. I'm not going to pay for it, and I don't know anybody that will pay for it. So it just seems like it's a fight that's swimming upstream. It's like, who wants to put on this circus, this travesty of a fight? I don't get it. Deontay Wilder is not the boxer, the man he used to be. And Ngannou's already been knocked out brutally in the boxing ring. That Tyson Fury is long past, in boxing. It's in the rearview mirror. No one remembers that. Now people just remember this man can't box and he already got knocked out. Now he's gonna go in there with a fighter in Wilder that nobody wants to see because Wilder's already been knocked out brutally as well. No one's gonna pay for this fight. No one's gonna be interested. It's gonna be a dud. I don't get it. I really don't get where we're at in this sport right now because this fight just does not make sense in every which way you want to put it. It doesn't make sense.
I think you're underestimating who is going to be interested because Francis Ngannou still has a pretty passionate fan base that follows him. And one thing we've learned about MMA fans in this era of MMA fighters crossing over is that they have an unflinching belief in their guy. They thought that Conor McGregor was going to beat Floyd Mayweather. They will go into this fight, and they thought Francis Ngannou was going to beat both Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. He almost beat one of them. So I think that the MMA fans will show out. Some of them will pay for this fight. I think Wilder still has a big enough name to.
No, you make a good point there. Another good point. I mean, look, I quoted P.T. Barnum earlier. Well, you could say the exact same thing with MMA fans. You know, no one ever went broke overestimating the ignorance of MMA fans. Yes, I think they will pay for their man to think they could beat another former champion and a washed fighter and Deontay Wilder. So there you go. You could sell it to a certain demographic of fans, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the MMA fans, because this one, I don't know. As a boxing fan, I have zero interest in this fight.
All right. Last thing, with Erickson Lubin set to take on Virgil Ortiz in a 154-pound fight, that has left Bakram Mutsalayev, your favorite fighter, looking around for another opponent. The IBF has gone down their list, and they have ordered Josh Kelly to face Erickson Lubin. Josh Kelly, the next highest rated contender in the IBF rankings that is available anyway. Josh Kelly was in the news last week after turning down the opportunity to fight Boots Ennis for no title at 154. Do you think that Josh Kelly should take a fight with Bakram Mutsalayev?
I don't think anybody should take a fight with Bakram Mutsalayev.
I can't. I can't. I can't with you. I can't. Continue. I can't. You're insane. You have made Bakram Mutsalayev out to be like the junior middleweight Marvin Hagler. Like he is the boogeyman of the junior middleweight division based on one win. Did you watch
it wasn't just that one win. It wasn't just that
Tell
one
me
win.
what the other win is. Give me one other win that Bakram Mutsalayev had that you said, oh, the whatever is the cackles in the back of my neck.
Are you finished?
Yes.
I watched the way this man carries himself, the way he fights, the way he punches. He punches in between the shots. It's hard for a guy to beat a guy like that with power, with ability, with that Russian strength, you know, that demeanor. They have no expression on their face, and they're always coming after you. Forget boogeyman. This guy's like, you know, Russian Frankenstein. You know, you can never get going with a guy like that. The reason he was able to knock out a guy with good technique and good power like Tim Tszyu is because he punches in between the shots. He intercepts in between the shots. Ask any boxer what type of fighter they would hate to fight. It's normally a southpaw, and it's a guy like Bakram Mutsalayev where you have nothing to gain and everything to lose, and a guy that has power and is always punching with you. He's not the type of guy that blocks what you're throwing at, waits until you're finished, then comes after you. No. He's going to punch and intercept in between your shots. That is so dangerous when you have power, experience, momentum, and you're avoided. And now you're a champion. That's the reason I think Mutsalayev is someone that everyone should avoid, man. Everyone should avoid him. Just like I think everyone should avoid a 6'6.5" junior middleweight and Sebastian Fundora. Everyone should avoid another junior middleweight and Bakram Mutsalayev. Both these guys, they should probably face each other. They should face each other because both these monsters, no one should be facing, and one of these monsters is to get out of here. That way, other 154 pounds can have a chance at a belt. It's a scary, scary decision to fight Bakram Mutsalayev.
It's exhausting.
Shivering. I'm shivering.
Exhausting having this conversation with you. Bakram Mutsalayev, who, look, this is going to sound like I'm dissing him. I'm not. I think he's a good fighter. I don't think he's the monster that you're making him out to be. Before that win over Tim Tszyu, Bakram Mutsalayev was best known as the guy that kept taking some checks to not force a mandatory with Jermell Charlo as he was trying to make his way to undisputed at 154. So he was fighting on these undercards and fighting Sergio against absolutely nobody. I want to give you a list of some names that Bakram Mutsalayev has fought over the last few years. One of them is someone you're very familiar with, Elvin Ayala. That was on his list of guys.
Yeah, and Ayala probably went some rounds with him. Ayala's
my God. How many years ago did you fight him?
Doesn't matter. Ayala went almost 12 with Arthur Abraham. How many rounds did he go with Mutsalayev?
Elvin Ayala went 9 rounds.
There you go. Hey, shout out to Ayala. And he was probably in his 40s by then.
Elvin Ayala is 44 years old right now.
There you go.
At that point, he was probably...
Fight, man. Elvin Ayala could fight. So I'm surprised he even went 9 rounds.
Okay. Elvin Ayala, before, just not to make this an Elvin Ayala conversation, but before that, Elvin Ayala lost 4 straight. He lost to Junior Castillo, Vaughn Alexander, Alantez Fox, and Patrick Day. And then he goes in and loses to Bakram Mutsalayev. So let's not act like he's the same guy that you fought back in your day. Anyway, that was a name that was on his list back in 2019. He then fought a bunch of nobodies with bad records. He fights Roberto Valenzuela Jr., who went the 8-round distance with him. He fought Jack Culcay over in Germany, who went 11 rounds with him, and that was a fight that Culcay was winning on one of those scorecards. And then he gets Tim Tszyu, who at that point was already damaged goods, and he knocks him out to have the signature moment of his career. Good for him. He beat the guy that was in front of him. But the idea that this guy should be avoided, like you're suggesting, is absolutely insane. He has done nothing short of that win over Tim Tszyu of showing that he is this absolute boogeyman, this feared fighter. Like, I don't know what you're looking at to make you believe that besides one fight against a guy that doesn't move his head and has proven to be a little bit chinny. So if I'm Josh Kelly, obviously money is going to play a role in all this. The reason Erickson Lubin is fighting Virgil Ortiz instead of Murtalayev is because there's more than $500,000 in difference in what he was going to get for a title fight against Murtalayev to what he's getting to fight Virgil Ortiz. This is going to be a financial element, but if I'm Josh Kelly, I'm betting on myself here. I'm saying, look, we can get Murtalayev to come over to the UK for this fight. If I get this title, all of a sudden I'm worth a heck of a lot more to Boots Ennis in a fight at 154 in 2026. Look, I disagreed with Josh Kelly turning down the Boots fight last week, but if he can get Murtalayev and he can get that title, all of a sudden he is fighting in a very different tax bracket. So if I'm Josh Kelly's team, Adam Booth, his promoters, I'm accepting that fight. I'm taking it every day of the week, twice on Sunday, and I'm betting on myself to beat Murtalayev.
What if has got a lot of people hurt in life, especially in boxing, especially in the hurt business. Josh Kelly, excellent boxer. I think he has excellent skill, great trainer in his corner, 2016 Olympian. I think Josh Kelly is an excellent boxer. But Bakram Murtalayev is a guy that even if he has a belt, you shouldn't be fighting. You're going to be, it's like,
oh my God, you're making him out to be Artur Beterbiev. You think he's Artur Beterbiev?
He has that same Russian power. He has that same.
Every Russian is the same.
He has the same style. These fighters from Eastern Europe, Ukrainians and Russians and Central Asian fighters in Kazakhstan, they're trained differently, man. First of all, they're powerful fighters. They have dense muscle, but their training style is totally different to the West Coast style of boxing. They know and understand. That's why they're so successful in the amateurs, and that's why they translate and transition as pros. They're dangerous fighters, and you're able to face them and fight them once they get to the Artur Beterbiev level, once they get to the Kovalev level, not when they're barely picked up a strap, having the biggest win in their career, just like Bakram did. You wait until they get a little bit more popularity. Look at
what is Josh Kelly waiting for? What do you think Josh Kelly should be waiting for?
Let me finish. Look at poor Janibek Alim Kanuli. That guy has 2 belts. No one wants to look his way. Yes, he's in a dormant division, but it doesn't matter. He has 2 belts, and still no one wants to fight him. Why? Because that's another boogeyman. That's another guy, Kazakh fighter, Kazakh Thunder with power and ability and skill, but he has a name that's forgettable and nobody really knows. Bakram's in the same boat. Why the hell would you do that if you're Josh Kelly? He's been playing it safe and close to the vest this entire time from the Olympics.
Why would you do it if you're Josh Kelly? The belt? The belt is why you do it. The belt is currency. Josh Kelly, according to Eddie Hearn, was offered $400,000 to fight Boots Ennis. He turned that down at the time.
That's the fight he should have taken.
He should take Boots Ennis for $400,000 or Bakram Murtalayev for like $300,000. You would say take the Boots fight?
You take the Boots fight all day, every day. You fight one of the best pound-for-pound talents that's known, that has a name, that's already been headlined, and he's being promoted while everyone knows who Boots Ennis is. He's the next big thing. He's the second coming of Bud Crawford. He's next in line. Bakram, on the other hand, nobody knows who the hell he is. He just barely beat a big name in Tim Tszyu. He's making his name. You can bet he's just hungry.
He didn't just barely beat Tim Tszyu. He knocked him out.
He beat the hell out of him. Yeah, he knocked him out early. But I'm saying people are barely knowing who he is. He's barely surfacing to the boxing.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. If you're Josh Kelly, if you get that belt, all of a sudden you're a 7-figure fighter.
Mark my words. Let's say it right here on this pod right now. Mark my words. And I hate to give predictions like this because I'm giving Josh Kelly no chance in this fight. He's going to get knocked out, eliminated, and never heard from again if he fights Bakram.
Oh my God, Sergio!
Mark my words right now. All right, I'm going on record.
Sergio, I don't believe you've even seen one Murtzalayev fight outside of the one against Tim Tszyu. I don't believe it.
I've
He's
seen
been fighting.
Murtzalayev fight. I've studied him, and I know
Okay.
exactly what I'm
Did
talking
you
about.
see him go the distance, the 12-round distance against Jorge Fortilla back in 2019?
No, I
Did
did
you
not.
see him go the 8-round distance against Kiara Gray back in 2021?
No, I did not.
Did you see him go the full 8-round distance against Valenzuela? Go 11
I watched
against
the
Jack
Valenzuela
Kulke?
fight.
Look, the reason that Beterbiev was as terrifying as he was that Beterbiev was beating some really good guys and beating them early by knockout. Like Beterbiev, I could understand why he was avoided by certain fighters. But this guy only has that performance against Tim Tszyu to hang his hat on in terms of being a terrifying fighter. So if you're Josh Kelly and you don't think you can beat Bakram Murtzalayev, you should get out of the game. Get out of the business altogether. Because if Josh Kelly wins that fight, he's a 7-figure fighter in the US, in Europe, anywhere. You can play the other champions off each other. You can get Eddie Hearn to pay $1 million for him to fight Boots Ennis. You can get Fundora interested. All of a sudden, the world is your oyster. If you don't fight him, you're sitting around on the shelf for more months hoping that Turki Al-Sheikh comes to the table and wants to see you fight again. That to me is a mistake. Josh Kelly should embrace the opportunity that is Bakram Murtzalayev and bet that his talent is going to be enough to beat him.
No.
Okay,
He should be facing a name, a familiar name. Someone
can't
that-
get a
he should
name.
Wait for
He
Boots.
can't
He should
get
wait
one.
for Virgil. He should wait for.
Oh,
he should move
why
up
would-
and
why-
fight the winner of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank? Fight a name if you're going to lose that undefeated record. Fight a name.
What?
If
He doesn't have an
in the
undefeated
blaze of
record, first of
glory.
all. He doesn't have an undefeated record, first of all. He got beat by David Avedic.
Josh Kelly, I'm sorry.
If you remember.
All right.
Yes.
Go out on the blaze of glory if you're going to get knocked out. 'Cause
You
he's-
keep at you're acting like like Conor Benn wins against Chris Eubank Jr. He's like, you know who I want to fight next? Josh Kelly. Boots Ennis beats his opponent coming up. Lima beats Lima, and he was, I want to fight Josh Kelly next. The only reason they would fight Josh Kelly next is if Josh Kelly has a belt. That's the only way they would be interested in fighting a Josh Kelly. Go get your belt, Josh. Bet on yourself. Take a little bit less money. Win that title. And then the boxing world is wide open.
Josh Kelly, run for your life. Do not face this man, Bakram Murtzalayev.
All right. From one allegedly avoided fighter to one that has been definitely avoided over the years. When we come back, I will be joined by heavyweight contender Michael Hunter.
Good transition, Mannix.
All right. Michael Hunter joins me now, heavyweight contender, speaking to me for the second time today. Our first interview had to be scrapped after it was learned later in the day on Wednesday that his fight against Jarrell Miller, which was tentatively scheduled for September 11th, was now off. And Mike, as I'm speaking to you, I was scrolling through Instagram, and Jarrell Miller is blaming all of this on you. He says you backed out of this fight. Tell me your side of this story.
Well, we had been told by Bash that there's more problems than just Don. It's a bigger issue. I think that, because of Big Baby Miller's, different promotional people pulling him different ways and managers and all that. And, him having those, drug issues. I think that, it was a lot of controversy on that side. We were handling, like I said, everything on our side was pretty thorough. And that was the only reason that I actually, entered and went before I even decided to leave my mandatory position. I made sure very thoroughly that that they were going to answer those two questions. Like I said, with one of the questions being, will Big Baby Miller fight me, and will the promoters and the networks stand strong? And they told me to go through a certain the Nevada Athletic Commission, and the Nevada Athletic Commission will kill the situation, and they did that. So for Big Baby to try to point the finger at me is really funny. And I even said that. I said, look, if Big Baby starts talking mess, because he's been quiet for 2 weeks, he hasn't said not one thing. He hasn't posted a video. He hasn't said nothing, and you already know his antics. So I said, if Big Baby starts talking mess, that means the fight is off, because he's been quiet the whole time, and now obviously that's what he's doing. So, and I see that he's trying to paint the narrative and put it on me, which is not necessarily the case. That we've been told by several different guys, the attorneys and the promoters over there, that Big Baby had much bigger problems than than Don King, and we've already handled the Don King situation. So that's the end of
So
what it.
so let's unpack a couple of those things. One is the specter looming over this fight was Don King threatening legal action to
Right.
stop this fight. Don King claims to have you under contract. Don King went as far as to schedule, apparently, a fight between you and Kubrat Pulev in October. I mean, I don't know if you had any belief that was actually going to happen, but that was what he was ultimately saying. Do you think that Don King had anything to do with this fight being canceled?
No, because like I said, I was very, very adamant about this. I cannot take a step forward and losing my mandatory position if these answers are not, if they didn't give me the right answers with this. And the first one was Big Baby Miller going to step in the ring with me, and they said that he kind of he's been forced a little bit, and if he doesn't really fight on these shows, then he wasn't gonna get another one or whatever. But I think that he kind of escaped that actual excuse because he had much more problems than with whatever the issue is, and that was told from their side of the promoters. I think that obviously Don King's antics and stuff like that, screaming and yelling. But if you see Don King originally saying he was suing the WBA, and then the next day he put out that I was going to be fighting for the WBA title. So, and usually when you put out cease and desist letters, you send a contract that this is my fighter, and he never did that. It was just more of a play. It was never filed, so it was just more of a publicity stunt. He was able to touch a lot of big media, inside, the people, the YouTube media that have millions of followers, and get the story out the way he wanted it. But, like I said, I've already had talked to the promoters, the network, and I had several attorneys on the line all together, and they told me exactly what to do. To talk to the Nevada Athletic Commission, and they would handle it because Don really doesn't have a leg to stand on. I showed him all the contracts that we previously had signed, all the bout agreements, and they all looked over it, and they knew what was going on. So that one was more, and they couldn't promise that Big Baby was going to jump in there. As I said before, that's been my main thing is the fighters end up pricing themselves out or jumping out. So, and now watch, you're gonna hear Big Baby talking a lot of mess because now he doesn't have to fight me. It's like a guy that's behind bars and says, yeah, all that hooping and hoorah and stuff. But when it was really coming down to it, yeah, you see, he had nothing to say. So.
So, so if it's not Don King, I'm just trying to unpack all this because you said a lot in terms of why this fight might not have happened. When you've talked to people involved with all this, like what have you been told is the number one reason this fight is not going to move forward?
Well, the thing is they didn't really actually tell us a reason. But they just said, look, between you and I, that the Don King thing is not the biggest issue, and the biggest issue has something to do with Big Baby Miller, and they didn't really explain or tell us exactly what it was. But we, like I said, he's had a lot of different managers, a lot of different promoters. I know he's always arguing with Salita, and Salita's always taking him to court, taking his money, and also he kind of shot himself in the foot by pointing all these people and trying to get a big deal. He would have got more. He would have got paid more if he would have just took the Fabio Wardley fight originally, but he priced himself out just like he kind of tried to do this time. But they kind of had put an ultimatum on him, and he had said originally yes, and that's why I said okay, because that was my biggest concern really. Was were they going to be able to get this man in the ring with me? You know what I'm saying? We've been knowing each other for quite some time. He's seen me. I used to tell everybody when I was in the amateurs, I used to be in the Vladimir Klitschko camp, and I was the number one sparring partner as an amateur. And at the end of it, I had a little controversy with Vitaly Klitschko, and me and him had a little out. And the next day, I ended up sparring with Vladimir Klitschko, which he wasn't even in camp. I wasn't supposed to, but they were trying to get me, discipline me in some way, and they couldn't do it. And he seen me at my best sparring both of those guys, and Big Baby Miller was right there. So he's been known, and if he's on camera always saying that he would never fight Michael Hunter. So for him to go silent, and now he's going to be talking and yapping his mouth, it's just who he is. So I have no like I said, I have no bad blood. I'm still moving forward, and we're gonna get a deal done anyway. I'm gonna be fighting here shortly.
So just to address it specifically, unequivocally, you were fine with the terms. You were fine with the contract. You were locked in, ready to go to fight Big Baby Miller on September 11th.
I signed my part. What I heard was, he signed his. I wasn't, we weren't sure because everything went silent. We knew that they did tell us that he didn't want to promote. He was having a hard time promoting the show and all that, which that's not normally an issue for him. But they said that he was giving them issues, you know what I'm saying? Giving them a hard time about the whole fight. Maybe so he was probably having a hard time signing it and all that. Before I signed it, Big Baby made sure that I was going to sign it. You know what I'm saying? And I was gonna, they kept asking me, hey, Big Baby said they want to make sure that you sign it so you get yours. So I said, okay, as long as you guys can, answer those two questions, and you guys are not going to be scared of Don. And then, like I said, they had several attorneys and the promoter and all of us all on the phone together, and they told me the protocol, and they said if I do that, then I would be good, and I did. I went through that. I wouldn't have just not go through it, and lose everything. And so yeah, that was that's how it really went out. And I know that he's going to be trying to create some type of story and say something because now he knows he's not fighting me. So obviously, always the big mouth is always going to say something when they're in a different position. So he better be lucky that something else doesn't happen and they force him again. So at any time that we could get this thing to happen, depending on his situation or whatever, however he's scooted by this situation. And if you know me, I've never ran from a fight. I've never shied away from any competition, and we know that Big Baby's Miller's energy has definitely changed before and after.
So if Big Baby Miller is out and he's not looking to fight you, you've got to turn the page. You've got to move on. Are you still hoping to fight during that week? Are you hoping to fight on the Canelo Crawford undercard? Like what's next for you?
Well, I got to sit down to them. They definitely said that they were the winner would have gotten a even better fight. And now that they know that I have nothing to do with it, maybe they're looking for opponents. I know it's a short time. If anybody can get it done, Turkey May could get it done. But definitely I'm gonna have something right in behind this. It's unfortunate that because it's in my hometown, it's Las Vegas. I was the main event, so this was just perfectly ideal for me. The writing was on the wall, and Big Baby knew it.
I asked you about this when we spoke earlier, so we'll ask you here again. We saw Moses Itauma this month come up with a big win in Saudi Arabia. He's being widely billed as the next big thing. Obviously, he wouldn't fight on September 11th, but if a fight against Itauma was presented to you, how would you react to it?
Like I said, I'd never shied away from any fight. I love that fight because he's a high competitor. He's a high competitor, and I like to play chess with the best of them. So uh, I will fight anywhere, anybody on any circumstance, like my father. So that's just in my bloodline. And Moses is a great dude. I love, like I said, when the first time I met him, he made me feel like a old legend, and it was actually really cool to experience being with him. I didn't even know who he was at the time, but he knew exactly who I was, and he was like a fan, and he showed a lot of respect. He was really cool, like I said, but I'm just trying to put my mark here on the boxing. So if that's who they want me to step in with, and the money's right and the situation's right, I will not say no. I think that there's a lot of different other fights that I could be showcased and build the hype up because I haven't been on the scene like
Give me one of them. Give me
lately.
one of them. What's if you could choose an opponent either for September or before the end of the year, who would be your first choice?
I would say I like Ajay Caballero. I think that's a very good fight. I think he's part of that boogeyman side. He's on the boogeyman side, and those are the guys I like to fight. So, obviously we have Martin Bacoli, which I've already been there and done that. So, but he's been winning and stuff like that. But I think that Ajay Caballero would be a good fight. I think. Who else we have over there? Any of those guys, but definitely, I just want to be out there on the scene and fight and showcase. Like I said, my only competitive fight that I really want is Usyk, because of my loss or whatever, and I want to right that wrong. So in my heart of hearts, I would want to fight Usyk, but I think to just get me on the scene and get me going and get my rhythm and my flow, and to kind of being able to, I've had a tough learning curve, what I'm saying? I've always been 2 rounds down, and that really, like I said, that's one thing that's very good for somebody like Usyk and somebody like Moses Itauma, that they have the people with them from the very beginning. I was unfortunate to not have that luxury, but I'm still competitive in the ranks with them. You know what I'm saying? I'm still in the high. And I think I will beat them. I think I will beat any of those guys. Just give me the opportunity, and just give me some time. You know what I'm saying? I want to showcase my skills and get my hands wet, and I'll be ready for any and everybody.
It's crazy to me that you haven't been getting at least some opportunities. It always seems like things crumble at the last minute for you. You want to get that one loss on your resume. You're a 2012 U.S. Olympian with one loss to one of the greatest fighters of all time, certainly one of the greatest fighters of this generation in Oleksandr Usyk. Well, Mike, I hope you get that fight either in September or before the end of the year. I love the names you threw out there. Ajay Caballero, I think, would be a great fight for you. You're right. He's another guy that just took advantage of these Saudi Arabian shows and burst onto the scene by beating guys as the underdog, and any of these other ones I'm sure would be great as well, man. Hope you ultimately get him, Mike. I really do.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. One love, baby.